Welcome to City Update here. I have Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink with me today, and we're going to ask him a few questions. So we're going to go right into it.
Thanks, Tom, for having me.
You're welcome. The city owns a lot of property for commonly understood reasons. The Planning and Economic Development Director, Adam Teagan, has been leading a project for the last year and a half. Mayor, can you tell me about the progress that has been made over that time and the importance it has to the average taxpayer in our city?
Sure, good question, Tom. A year and a half ago, right after I took office, I met with a group of realtors in town, and some inquired why the city has retained certain property and why it hasn't marketed it and sold it off. So we undertook a very comprehensive review of exactly why we have certain property. It really started with what property do we own, and then what are the reasons. So we categorized them in three areas. One, yes, there's a reason why we have it. No, we don't necessarily need it, or maybe there might be a reason today or in the future that we want to retain ownership of that property. So that project took some time. All the properties that have been identified right now, and so initially we took a look at small remnants of parcels of property. So typically it might have been an old alleyway historically that the city may have maintained and has no need to maintain it anymore. It could have been a piece of right-of-way. So if a road construction project, right-of-way was acquired, we may not need as much of it anymore for the project, and so looking at selling that back to an adjacent property owner. Oftentimes a lot of the parcels are not buildable on their own, so it'll have a positive benefit to the taxpayer in the sense that those properties will now go back to the tax roll, and so tax revenues will be generated off the property. So we're very excited about the progress made. It's a tangible example of the city looking at reasons of why it does things a certain way, and it really came about from a meeting that I had and Adam had with the realtors right after I took office, recognizing, gosh, the city is a large property owner for many reasons, as you mentioned, whether it's our parks or our pool, fire and police station, city hall, etc. So for us, it was just a simple way for us to look at city property and then get it back to the tax roll where it makes sense.
Well, it sounds like a win-win situation for both,
it really is.
And working with the realtors in town. So
exactly.
It's a big full circle here.
Yeah, and we're taking the next step of the project, or next phase of it will be to take it to finance and property and get their consideration and their buy-in on the project. And then there are business parks like Woodlands Business Park that the city owns a lot of property yet, and we haven't, it's not marketed at present. Typically when we have a business prospect, we cite them there if it's appropriate for their business use, but looking at ways that we can potentially market that to the outside world as well, like we did in the Rapids East Commerce Park.
Wisconsin Rapids is part of a regional revolving loan fund, according to your new blog that you have. Please tell our residents and our business owners how someone can apply for this kind of loan.
Very good. Well, the Regional Revolving Loan Fund is part of a multi-county regional revolving loan fund from all the way from Juneau County to the south to Vilas, Langlade, all the way to the north. And all the counties participate, and the cities in those counties all have a representative. So I serve on the Central Wisconsin Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund Board of Directors, and we meet monthly to review the financials of the organization. Right now we're in the process of hiring an executive director, so the region is well represented, and the fund is $12 million in assets, so it's a very large fund. About $9 million has been lent to businesses and opportunities throughout the central Wisconsin region. So that leaves us with about $3 million available to be lent, so a significant amount of money. There's a micro revolving loan fund, and then there's a larger fund as well. The micro fund is meant to be a little bit more flexible in terms of its terms. It's 2% interest, and it's meant to be gap financing. So anybody that's looking to start a business or has an existing business, it's a fit for both, and we look at it as a great engine to spur job creation, and particularly for those firms that may not be able to get the entire loan funded through a traditional bank. So it comes to the city. There's a loan application that gets filled out. A group of staff and I review the application, and then we recommend it to the Industrial Development Commission, which will then approve or deny the request. So from there, it's very simple. The application's pretty straightforward, just like any other application anybody would fill out at a bank. But it's a non-traditional funding source that we find has tremendous value for anyone looking to start or to grow an existing business.
2% is all they have to pay back.
2% interest.
What, over a certain time period?
Depends on if it's real estate or if it's startup capital or operating capital. But typically 7 years is an average of the length of the loan. So at 2% interest, that money is loaned out and then repaid. So there's been a lot of projects in the history of the loan fund in Rapids that have been funded. Not a lot in the last number of years, but a few here and there.
And it just fills the little gap, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
If they're not able to maybe get the full amount of loan from a traditional bank, maybe you can get $10,000, $15,000 to complete that transaction.
Got it. So an example of a recent project was that we funded was a chiropractic clinic, and they owned it was an existing chiropractic clinic, but they wanted to purchase the building they were operating in. It made sense for them. They weren't paying someone else rent, and then they were able to lease out the available space, and then obviously in turn create a job or two in the existing the commercial space that was in the building.
Well, you have a new initiative now, Coffee with the Mayor, and
Yeah.
you kicked it off at State of the City here last month. Can you elaborate on when and where you're planning those meetings and what people can expect when they go to them?
I've held them just about weekly throughout the city. Most places have been coffee houses and breakfast restaurants for the purpose of meeting people where they're at. I recognize that not everybody wants to make an appointment with the mayor, but wants to maybe just ask a simple question when I'm out in the community. So this gives them a scheduled or a formal opportunity in my calendar to be able to be at a place where residents can engage with the mayor directly. It's not meant to be anything where I'm doing a speech ad or any speaking engagement. So it allows residents to just have a casual conversation at their location where they may be throughout the community.
And they really can come with their questions at that time, which is probably the way to do it rather than come to a common council meeting, which is not on the agenda.
If the item's not on the agenda, you know it, exactly. And so being accessible is very important to me. It's not meant to replace any additional mode of communication with me, but just add an additional mode of communication to complement exactly what I do.
Let's talk about another thing that's in your blog that you stated, getting our city on the map. That's been a big initiative here in the past several months that you've talked about, which has to deal with recertification in that East Industrial Park.
Sure.
Why is that so important here to be shovel-ready? We've heard that term shovel-ready. And what is the difference between our neighbors and Buren and Nakusa? They also have business parks as well.
Well, the certification in the Rapids East Commerce Park was a really good success for the city, and obviously it only means something if we can land a tenant in it, right, to purchase the land and create jobs there. But it's the first step to getting that done. For us, it was a matter of cutting a lot of the red tape and a lot of the lengthy studies and time that it would take any existing or any potential prospect to look to build at the site. Any traditional land, it can be 6 months to over a year for some of those studies to be completed. So we've got those done, whether they're environmental impact or environmental assessment of the location, wetlands, all of those basic studies that would require investment and time from a potential prospect. How does it complement other sites in our area? Well, we are the only site in the Wisconsin Rapids area that's certified. Stevens Point has a site, a very large site, in fact. But for us, we're very interested in making sure that is a known site. So anybody that's in any particular manufacturing or food processing would be a great candidate to fill that location. The water and the wastewater, the sewer and the electrical grid, all of those are good qualifiers to have that site certified. So having that certification and then pairing it up with marketing. Now it's listed nationally and internationally with site selectors around the world for the state to be able to attract potentially a tenant to the location as well.
Yeah, so you're working not just regionally or citywide, we're working now globally wide is what you're looking at.
You got it.
Great. Well, in closing, we've been talking about your new community blog, so I think this is a chance to talk about that.
Yeah.
How can someone get on this list so they can receive that blog? And is there anything new coming in the blog that's coming up that you can share with us now in March?
So about every week I post a blog, and it covers notable meetings or highlights of my calendar from the previous week. So it could be anything from city property, for example, a meeting that was held, or the blog I posted today was about visitors I had from Washington Elementary. So it covers a variety of topics and ideas of the spectrum. So it really is a way to just introduce another way for the mayor's office to communicate with the public. Again, it's not meant to replace any avenue or any interaction that I have with the public, but to complement what is already being done. So residents can go on the city website, wirapids.org, and click on the mayor's page, and they can subscribe to the community update. If somebody wants a mailed copy of the community update, we'd be glad to do so. It's in a format that can be printed and mailed, so we'd be glad to do that as well. So if there's a place in the community that they want to post it, whenever I post a new update, I'd be glad to invite them to do so.
Alrighty, well, I want to thank you for all that information that
Sure.
provided us here for our viewers and for us here at RCCA.
All right, Tom, thank you for the opportunity.
Alrighty, and join us next time on Community Update here with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink.